one of the things that's really mattered to me and to CDT as an organization is just making sure that for once and for all, we're putting behind us the idea of notice and choice being the governing paradigm here, that we need much stronger protections that just establish a baseline for consumer expectations. And I think we've seen really good movement in that conversation, including even from, Republican appointed Commissioner Wilson at the FTC has talked about that being a paradigm that needs to be set aside for some baseline protections. So how do we actually make movement on that and momentum? I think part of the challenge is that right now everyone else is hanging on the sidelines, waiting for the ref to call the start of the game. We really need the Biden administration to step in and be that ref and say, the game is beginning. Let's really have these conversations and try to move the ball forward. Otherwise, it's just too hard for people to come out of their corners and actually begin showing where they're willing to move on these various bills. So we need some signal that there is going to be energy here. I think one of the challenges is that there are so many tech-related issues pending in society today, but also that Congress is trying to navigate. There are really active conversations happening around competition. There are really active conversations happening around Section 230 and intermediary liability protections. And so part of this is also figuring out, well, which of the dials should we be turning to address some of the concerns that people have about how major tech companies are using people's data. My hope is that we can walk and chew gum at the same time, that it doesn't have to be just a pick one and turn that really hard and then leave the others. I don't think that's a responsible way to govern, and it doesn't really reflect the reality of how these technologies are being used and the types of issues that consumers need to be wary of. But I do think that there is energy there. And, I think there's one telling example as in the rash of competition action that we've seen just in the past couple weeks alone. If you had told me a couple of years ago that the House Judiciary Committee would be passing out with bipartisan support a package of legislative proposals to dramatically reshape competition law, I would have been surprised by that outcome, right? People can take pot shots at those bills. There are things that are going to need to change as it moves towards the floor and gets considered in the Senate. But that shows that people are understanding the importance of these issues. And my hope is that we can start to get privacy protections with that same level of energy and momentum as well. Because it's not enough to just talk about breaking up a couple big companies. We need to be thinking more globally about sector-wide issues around the use of data. And privacy legislation and the steps that have been made in these conversations do go much further at addressing a broader set of issues that speak to voters and speak to consumers, and I think need to stay on the table.